Welcome to JED's Journal Podcast from the JED TV studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Now here's your host, Jim Dedelow.
And we have to go straight to kind of a sad one in that the wake for a good friend is today. And that is, I can't believe I'm saying this, he's only 66 years old. Tom Keilman, the former BP guy, has died, and his wake is today and funeral tomorrow. Tom Keilman, former BP Whiting Refinery Director of Government and Public Affairs and the first Maryville town manager, has died. He's a native of East Chicago who grew up in Hessville, served as Maryville's inaugural town manager before spending 20 years at BP. And the Crown Point resident died at the age of 66 at Methodist in Maryville. Tom Keilman, let me turn my mic down just a little tiny bit here. I don't know why it's so hot. There you go. Tom Keilman was a dear friend and dedicated corporate and community leader, said Dave Ryan, the former executive director at Lakeshore Chamber. He was also with NIPSCO. Tom was deeply committed to improving the quality of life in Northwest Indiana. And Keilman handled public affairs at BP Whiting Refinery from 1999 to 2019. BP spokesman Cesar Rodriguez said Tom was a cherished colleague and friend. We are saddened by his passing, but remain grateful for his many years of dedicated service to BP. He was also on a bunch of other stuff. Maryville Town Manager Mike Griffin. Maryville Town Manager Michael Griffin. Is that where he is? Anyways, I first met Keilman when I was newly elected clerk treasurer in Highland. I was impressed with his professionalism and commitment. And here's probably the most accurate description of Tom Keilman. Tom was a fun-loving, gracious guy who loved life, family, and friends, as well as his Bears, Cubs, and Hoosiers. And he was really obnoxious about the Cubs and kind of about IU. So you heard Dave Ryan call in last week when we announced the death of Tom Keilman. And the phone went silent as Dave was unable to complete that phone call, and it was kind of my fault, and I want to apologize directly to Dave Ryan because I kind of twisted his arm because I didn't want to have to make the announcement, and I didn't know if I was going to make it, right? So Dave called in, and Dave, what's going on? Dave. And then, he had an emotional moment. So Kuziak kind of announced it here, and he called in, and we appreciate Kuz doing that. He was a pretty good friend. Kuz and Keilman together was bad news during the day, during the heydays. Kuziak and Keilman and Reardon was bad news. And I tried to see them for very short periods of time and try to bop in and out. But Keilman was one of a kind. I don't know, we're talking about Keilman and we're talking about Dave Ryan here. And one time, I don't know, it had to be 10 years ago, Keilman says, hey man, let's all go for dinner and take the wives. So Keilman and Dave Ryan and I and our three wives go up to Chicago. And here I am saying, Kuziak and Keilman was bad news. It's fairly well understood that when I get going, especially with a guy like Keilman and Dave Ryan, I'm probably worse than any of them. But anyways, we went in and around a number of establishments in Chicago, and I remember they're like, hey, let's, where do you guys want to eat or whatever? And, we got a reservation, and somehow we wound up at some really highfalutin restaurant in Chicago, and they put us on the second floor, and it was the six of us, And right next to us was an Asian American group of about, 15 people. And it was kind of the party room upstairs. So they put us up there. So I just remember that there were these, maybe it was 20 Asian Americans, and they were speaking an Asian language. And they were kind of doing it kind of quietly. And then here come these just boisterous Dave Ryan, Tom Keilman, and Jim Dedelow, and all of our wives. And we sit down and we just start, MFing this and talking really loud and laughing. And I think I acted out some sort of imitation of somebody in the aisle. And a number of times, the purveyor of said restaurant had to come up and ask us if we might just keep it down a little bit. And we go, oh, yeah, sorry about that. Because then it got so bad that I think that the Asian Americans that were there having this big party started just, stopped their party and just watched us. And then we were talking back and forth to them. And it must have been like somebody's birthday or something that was living here, but they had a number of people that didn't understand English or couldn't speak it very well, but they could understand laughing. And then by the time we were gone, it was me and Keilman and Ryan and Ken had putting on a little show for the Asian party, and it was memorable evenings. But those will happen no longer, as the visitation is today, and it's from 3 to 7. As where is that? I don't see the obituary, but all I know is I got to be out there on Broadway. I'll be out there around 3 o'clock. One of the guys at BP I worked with here in the mid 1980s at WJOB, and I sure as hell hope I see him there. Ron Rabarchik, I'm going to get out there early. I got babysitting duties at 4:30, so I'll be out there around 3, and then I think Alexis will relinquish, and then she'll be out there, 4:30 or 5. But the guy named Ron Rabarchik, anybody remember that name? Rivers, as so said, was here working with me and Donna Demansky and Tim Need and Ron Perzo, and you get the idea. It was a goofy time to work here at WJOB, and I didn't really know Keilman then, but then Rabarchik left WJOB, and then he went to BP well before Keilman did, and then Rabarchik got promoted and put, I think, in like Toledo or something, and he's been out of the area for a long time. And I can tell Ron Rabarchik stories if you want that, but I know that he's an upstanding member of wherever he lives in Ohio and probably doesn't want me to tell him. But in the end, I'm kind of messing around because, I got to tell you that some of the best, does anybody remember Conrad Dobler? Well, he was this guy that was known as like instigating disagreements from people. He'd get two guys that he knew had a history of maybe going at it, and he'd get in the middle of them, and he'd all of a sudden somehow get them arguing with each other, sometimes on a field and during a game. I think he played for the Oakland Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. Well, sometimes I pull my inner Conrad Dobler to get Tom Keilman and the preacher arguing. Now, there was some history here because the preacher, who many of you don't even know who that was, but he died in 2011, possibly one of the most talented guys I ever heard on the radio. And that goes national, anything. And he was a gambler. He was kind of a shady character. He ran book. He lived in Vegas for a while. He loved to drink his Glenlivet at these different area establishments. He was a fixture at Freddy's Steakhouse. By the way, I want to say thank you to Freddy's Steakhouse for sponsoring Gino's show, and I'll give him some plays here on my show. Just a local Jim and Tammy local place. We don't talk much about it, but they were just on a TV show. They filmed a TV show over there, and they're just good people. I was over there for lunch, and I need to go over there more, and so do you, to Freddy's Steakhouse, if for no other reason to remember Preacher walking around in a red velour smoking jacket like Hugh Hefner. And anyways, Preacher and Tom Keilman played, grew up at near the same time. I don't know, maybe Preacher was, I think they might have been around the same age. But there was at some point, Preacher was a pitcher in I don't know where where would Hessville have played Little League? Hessville Little League, right? I think, yeah. Now they got Optimist over there, but at Hessville Little League, they're like the championship of Hessville Little League. And Preacher said that he struck Keilman out basically to win the championship of Hessville Little League. And Keilman was like, no, you don't get that right. I got a hit off of you. And then you struck out the next guy or whatever. They had a disagreement on it. And personally, bringing up my Conrad Dobler when we were all out carousing, Preacher and Keilman and I, would be really a lot of fun to just bring that up and somehow work that into the conversation. And then the next thing you know, they wouldn't just be arguing about who struck out who and all that. They would be going on to other things and who dated who and all that stuff. And I can tell you, for pure entertainment, if anybody knew Tom Keilman and anybody listened to the Preacher, to me that was top of the line. I would just sit back and go like, wow, this is really good. And then they would be on the edge of kind of getting irritated with each other, and then they would get like outright angry at each other. And then I had to maybe step in a couple times, say, hey man, let's calm it down. Here we are at a public place. But anyway, Tom Keilman dead at the age of 66. His wake is today and funeral tomorrow. We will take a moment here to just remember Tom Keilman and to think about the family, Kim and the rest of them, and the two girls. And it's hard to believe. No more Keilman. I'm looking at his picture here, and he's smiling, and he's just ready to. He used to roll his shoulders up and kind of laugh silently when he would make fun of somebody. He was very professional as BP and as Maryville town manager, but when you wanted to bring the inner Hessville out in him, he was pretty good too. So, Tom, we're going to miss you.
You've been listening to JED's Journal podcast from the JED TV studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Thank you for listening.